before on this podcast about Sunday to Thursday running back regressions. Something I started researching about 5 years ago. My data goes back to 2012. All the running backs have had at least 10 touches on Sunday and what they did on Thursday in terms of touches and fantasy points. The higher you go in terms of the Sunday touches, the higher the probability of a regression on Thursday, and the regression rate is higher. Which, if you look at the spreadsheet that I have, you can see, oh yeah, there's this curve, there's this kind of pattern that develops where the older they are, usually, and also the more they touch the ball, the steeper the regression, the higher probability. So we've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who had 26 touches on Sunday, and then Kareem Hunt had 33 touches on Sunday. Both played yesterday. Both had the most touches of all the running backs playing yesterday, based on what they did on Sunday. So I'm isolating those two. Those were the highest risk regression rates. You had other guys like Derrick Henry, Chase Brown. Derrick Henry's been doing this for years. He's actually one of those rare running backs where the Sunday to Thursday regression doesn't affect him as much. It's just one of those strange things. There's some running backs who can get 20 touches on Sunday and then do it again on Thursday, and you don't really see much of a difference. In most cases, though, you see a difference. So Gibbs, last year, I talked about this before, had 26 touches on the Sunday game before he played on Thursday for Thanksgiving. And then he had 11 on Thanksgiving. He could afford to do that. And David Montgomery, his teammate, had 11 touches on Sunday and then 26 on Thursday. They basically flipped roles. Yesterday, they couldn't do that. They were playing from behind against Green Bay. Gibbs is increasingly more talented than Montgomery each of the last 3 seasons, going back to 2023 rookie and then 2024. And now this year, Montgomery, his abilities are sliding a bit, as I talked about recently, and advanced metrics show that. And Gibbs is better than ever, or as good as ever. So they leaned into him heavily, and he had a lot of touches. He just didn't do as much with it. Some might argue, well, yeah, he faced the Packers, and so therefore they stuffed him. I would argue, yeah, that's true, and these statistics go back to 2012, and they don't factor in, every time you go from a Sunday to a Thursday game, the Thursday opponent is always tougher. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes the Thursday opponent is easier, and yet running backs regress and or they get fewer touches. In Gibbs' case, he got fewer touches, but he was far less efficient, and he struggled, essentially. Kareem Hunt is a really interesting case. I thought that, and I wrote about this on the blog, I thought that because he had 33 touches on Sunday and because Isaiah Pacheco was out, that the assumption was the coaching staff knew Pacheco would be back on Thursday, and therefore they ran Hunt more than Hunt has ever carried the ball. 33 carries, or 30 carries, 33 touches, but 30 carries was a career high for the 30-year-old Kareem Hunt. It's very unusual to have a career high carries at 30 years old, given the mileage that Hunt has had. I assumed that because the Chiefs seemed to understand that Pacheco was probably going to be back on Thursday, they could run Hunt into the ground and then turn the ball over more to Pacheco on Thursday. It didn't work out that way. Pacheco was used sparingly. Hunt got a bunch of touches. What did he do? He got about 8-9 fantasy points. Not great. If you started him, you probably felt lukewarm about the experience. I'll put it that way. That 8-9 points, not great. Could have been worse, but not great. That's what you get with guys generally when they have 30 plus touches on Thursday. It's only happened 18 times since 2012 that a running back has had 30 plus touches on Sunday and then played on Thursday. In almost every instance, the regression is significant. And so we can't just ignore that, even though it's Kareem Hunt and he looks like, he's crushing it game after game. And you look at it more closely and you say, well, he's scoring game after game. That's kind of why he's crushing it. But even when you discount that, the idea that he has 33 touches, 30 of those are carries, the odds are against him. And so if you started him yesterday, you started him if you had known, if you had listened to this podcast and you kind of knew the deal, you would have been starting him knowing that he was a very low probability fantasy starter, low probability of a good game. And so if you go into it with that knowledge, then at least you're aware of the risks. My job, as I see it, is to present what those risks are and the probabilities so that the next time somebody has 30 plus touches or even 25 plus touches, you know what you're getting into if you start that player, that the downside is much steeper than in most other weeks. Looking ahead, the next Thursday game next week doesn't count because it's the Cowboys and Lions. So they're going Thursday to Thursday, so that there's no Sunday to Thursday, that I'm going to add to my spreadsheet for that. But the following week, you're going to have the Buccaneers and the Falcons. So the preceding Sunday, 4 days earlier, you've got the Falcons going up against Seattle. Bijan Robinson, I suspect, is going to be, if he is still playing at that point, I assume he will be, leaned on very heavily. It's going to be a tough game. The assumption is going to be 24 plus touches. That's my assumption. There is some risk then against the Buccaneers that even someone as youthful and talented as Bijan Robinson will be susceptible to a meaningful regression if that happens. So stay tuned for that. Bucky Irving and the Buccaneers, assuming Bucky Irving is starting at that point and gets plenty of touches. We'll see if he does. Maybe Sean Tucker and Rashad White will mix in. But they're playing the Saints. It should be a comfortable win for the Bucs. Should, could, who knows? But in the belief that they're going to have a comfortable win, it's quite possible that Bucky Irving will not be utilized heavily and therefore will be very fresh for that Thursday game, in which case you don't have to worry about Bucky Irving on Thursday, assuming that he does fine on Sunday. That's how I like to see these things. I look at Thursday games, I immediately go back to the Sunday, and I think, okay, what do I think is the game script, and therefore what do I expect to happen on Thursday if those game scripts hold. So be on the lookout. If you have Bijan Robinson, you have Bucky Irving, you've got that Sunday to Thursday coming up, and what happens next Sunday could be a huge indicator of whether you feel really confident about starting both of those guys or whether you are starting them and just hoping that they don't do what most other running backs do if they get high usage on Sunday, and that is face a significant regression. BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Email me anytime. We'll see you tomorrow.